Jack up the car, get the jack stands under the jacking points right under the front of each rear tire, and get the wheels off. Start by punching out this pin, which is holding in a spring, keeping pressure on the pads. Remove the two bolts holding the caliper. I believe they were 15 or 16 millimeter. You might need to squeeze the pads and the caliper to make some space so you can pull the pads out. Be sure to tie up the caliper and support it so there's no pressure on the brake line. Remove the T30 Torx screw holding the rotor to the hub. Use a puller to pull this off if it's stuck. I mean, we beat on it with a rubber mallet, and then we use a regular hammer, and it just wouldn't come off, and the puller worked great. The rotor wanted to spin, so I had to set the parking brake. Obviously, the parking brake holds the rotor to the hub, so you kind of have to set the brake, tighten up the puller, and then release the brake. We're using a welding clamp to compress the piston into the caliper. You can use any medium-sized C-clamp. It doesn't have to be this big-ass clamp. Just be careful not to compress it too far into the caliper, and you don't want to damage the seal. You just want to compress it just enough where you can fit the pads and the rotor in there. Be sure to clean off the new rotors because they typically come with a coating on them to prevent rust. You want to make sure that coating is cleaned off before you put them on your car. We put a little bit of Loctite on this Torx screw holding on the rotor. Not necessary, but I think it's cheap insurance. Found that we had to compress the pistons a little bit more into the caliper to get it to fit over the rotor. So we just, again, use a clamp to compress it. We put a tiny amount of Loctite on the caliper bolts. Be sure to follow the braking procedure that comes with your pads, and you're done.